Hey everyone, this is the Villains Man, and I'm JVD, bringing you another comic book review over Amazing Spider-Man, the Saga of the Alien Costume. This takes place between issues 252 through 259. You can catch the rest of this in the epilogue of Fantastic Four number 274, and it wraps up in Web of Spider-Man number 1. Now, a fact maybe little people know about this black costume, the alien costume that becomes Venom. It was conceived by a Marvel fan named Randy Schuler, and in 1982, Marvel purchased the idea from him for $220. In 1982, that was probably a good bit of money compared to what today's money would be if you go through inflation, but I guarantee seeing the popularity of Venom and the character showed up in Spider-Man 3, the character showing up now in the Venom movie, as many series as the character has spawned the idea of this alien costume, he probably wishes he would have got some type of rights with it. But, just a little fact there for you guys that may not be aware of where the idea from the suit came from. It did not come from an artist. It did not come from a writer. It was conceived by a fan from Marvel. So anybody that ever wants to do something in comics, maybe that'll give you some hope. But this is a really good story. I don't get big into reading older books. The 80s is almost where I kind of draw the line at, but I really love Spider-Man. And what's great about these old stories, especially at this time in Spider-Man, is that the writers do a really good job of plotting future stories while you're reading the current issues. And for instance, this Alien Saga, which for Spider-Man's dealing with the Symbiote, there are 3 other plot points going on during all these 8 issues, not counting the Fantastic Four and Web of Spider-Man issue. And it's really good, and it's almost like a lost art for comic book writing today. It seems most modern comic books, you just get the story, which may be anywhere between 4 to 5 issues, and it might have a lead on to something in the future, but not so many plot points for future stories like you would get in this story. So, like I said, it's a lost art. I feel that very few writers still do this today, and it's probably something that needs to happen in comics more often. But, with that, this book takes place right after Marvel's first Secret Wars event. Right before this, Batman. Oh God, that's horrible, isn't it? Spider-Man had just defeated the Hobgoblin, probably the hottest villain for Marvel at the time. Him and Spider-Man had been feuding for quite a while, and apparently he's presumed dead. And then Secret Wars happened, where Spider-Man got the symbiote on the Beyonders battle planet where all that was taking place. And then as the story starts, they're arriving home. So it's a pretty good story. I'll start to get to some spoilers here. As I'd said, they just came back from the Secret Wars, and Spider-Man shows up with Curt Connors, someone that he cares very much about. If you don't know anything, he's the Lizard, and the other rest of the Marvel heroes soon come after. Now, as happy as Spider-Man is to come back, he's got that Parker luck. He's still got bills to pay. His apartment's still crummy. He's dealing with his relationship with Black Cat. He's dropped out of school after he's come back, which has really put a wedge between him and Aunt May. Mary Jane comes back into his life, so he's got a lot of personal issues while dealing with the symbiote. That's one of your main plot points here. Felicia is coming to the point where she wants to be this perfect partner for Spider-Man because they're lovers at this time, and she is not really in love with Peter. She's in love with Spider-Man. She does not even call him Pete. She does not call him Petey. She does not even call him Parker. She calls him Spider. And she wants powers, and she wants to get powers for the Kingpin. She has her bad luck powers here. And she's trying to figure out a way to not let the Kingpin know that it's worked, and try to prove to Spider-Man that she can be the perfect partner for him. And which turns out actually really great when they cross paths with Puma, which I'll get to later. The Hobgoblin's battle van has been pulled out of the river after his recent fight with Spider-Man. And that's all been done by the Rose, who is still working for the Kingpin and seeks to undermine him. He has Jack-o'-lantern go after it, and there's a fight with him and the new Spider-Man, which Jack-O-Lantern realizes that Peter is now stronger and faster than what he typically usually was. And eventually, knowing that that he can't do the job, they hire Puma, which you get the first appearance of Puma during this saga. He's a very, I would say, well-known Marvel character. Basically, he's an Indian that's got the powers to turn into a puma. Even during the fight with him and Spider-Man, there's a pretty good joke where he's making fun of his name due to the shoe Puma. But they do a really good job of making Puma look really strong during their fight with Spider-Man by causing Spider-Man to dislocate his shoulder, which I don't understand. It's pretty impressive. Puma's in New York, and being an animal, you figure that all the smells of the city would really mess with him, but he's able to focus enough on Spider-Man that he can find his smell, track him down. He throws a pipe, which sets off his spider sense. He falls, and instead of webbing out or trying to stop himself with his whole body, he uses one arm, which pulls his arm out of socket. So they give Puma a way to get a jump on Spider-Man with making him look strong without showing off Spider-Man to be a much more powerful opponent for Puma. Eventually, Puma has a sense of honor about him. He has a code about this, and he winds up calling off the hunt for Spider-Man. But Puma doesn't really have a lot to do in the Spider-Man series for, I would say, a long time after this. And oddly enough, he does have a relationship with Black Cat a good 20 years down the road after this. But it's really cool when Black Cat winds up saving Spider-Man from the fight. Because he's very, very injured due to this dislocated shoulder. And it kind of shows you the type of duo they could be with her bad luck powers and his spider sense. Because basically you have a living danger detector, and with his reaction time and just the fact that knowing that he senses trouble, her bad luck powers will activate, and that's the only way they get rid of Puma. And them two together, if they would have worked out, which if you know anything about Spider-Man, they don't, could really do some damage against people that are probably, way out of their league. So it's a really good pairing, and I wish that this would have lasted a little bit longer. Because eventually, once Mary Jane comes back into his life, there's some jealousy there, and Black Cat winds up leaving. But Mary Jane comes back into Peter's life and explains to him her abusive past and why she's left. And she reveals, after a fight with Puma, while she's trying to come talk to Peter, and afterwards, that she always knew he was Spider-Man. And it's kind of one of the reasons why she's left, and she didn't know she could ever deal with it, and she kind of admits that she's always been in love with him. And so he admits it too, because it makes sense, because the two are always meant to be together. They have a very unique love relationship in Marvel, and I would say in all of comics. And so they wind up getting back together. Pete, mainly this, with this, the Hobgoblin returns to help the Rose, and they're basically going to undermine the Kingpin to take over New York. So, like I said, there's a lot of good future storylines here. Puma saves Pete for later on, lets him live so he can, basically come back at a right time and fight with honor. The Rose and the Hobgoblin are teaming up to take down the Kingpin to rule New York. Felicia Harding, like I said, doesn't know if she can have this relationship with Pete, because once she starts to see the way he lives and how he's broke and who he is under the mask, it really shows her high maintenance. And we have the story with Pete and put the wedge between him and Aunt May that he hates because he's quitting school. And, that's one thing he has sought all his life and through his studies as a young child. So, like I said, there's a lot of good storytelling here for later on in the future of the series, like I said, that you don't get here in comic books. But the main thing that I'm sure everybody here listens to is the symbiote. And there's some very weird stuff here that goes on before I start to get into some of the stuff in the book. Peter washes the symbiote, and it's really strange. Because if you know anything about the symbiote later on, you can really see it in the Spider-Man 3 movie. He's pulling off almost like it's slime, like it's goop. And in this book, it looks like a pair of pants, a top, and a mask. It looks like clothing. It does not look anything living. And even as it moves around itself, it still looks like a piece of clothing. It looks like his suit. Even when he dreams about it, and it's giving him nightmares, it still looks like a piece of clothing. It looks nothing like we've come to know the symbiote later on. And I thought that was really weird that he washes the symbiote. I just don't understand that. But anyways, he's really enjoying the benefits of the symbiote. As I said, Jack-o'-lantern mentioned how much faster, stronger, agile he was because the suit is feeding off his powers and amplifying them. He likes it because, for one, it'll stash his camera and it reacts to his mental commands. So when he thinks of his camera, it pulls out his camera for him. His spider signal, the spotlight that he shows, that he really doesn't use a whole lot later on in life, it stores it in the spot that he would normally have it on his waist. It changes into clothing, and if you know anything about Peter Parker, he's always broke, so he's kind of seeing this as a boon, like, hey, I won't ever have to buy clothes. This thing can change into anything I want. But he realizes that he really needs to get it checked out, and he hits up Reed Richards, who had mentioned something in Secret War, that he wanted to take a look at the suit. So, eventually, that's the whole goal through this whole saga, is he's trying to get there. And he keeps getting held back and whatnot. And finally, he makes it there, and he's going to let Reed just look at the suit, and he realizes that it's sentient, that it's intelligent, it's got some life. And he's worried about the harm it's going to do to Peter, because Peter keeps talking about how he's always tired because of it, and he doesn't realize that the suit is actually bonding with him in his sleep and taking him out. And he doesn't know this. So eventually, Reed realizes that he needs his sonic blaster to get it off of him. And he winds up containing the symbiote and leaving Pete without it. And we also get the bombastic bagman appearance here because he doesn't have a suit. Johnny gives him the suit, gives him a paper bag for his mask, puts a kick me sign on. It's very, very classic Johnny Storm stuff. It's really funny. But eventually, Pete and Mary Jane get back together. He's free of the suit and he's pretty happy. Now, fast forward months down the road to Fantastic Four 274 in the epilogue. Something is in the Baxter building and winds up letting the symbiote out. And the symbiote winds up going after Spider-Man. And when we go fast forward now to Web of Spider-Man #1, the symbiote changes into Pete's suit. Now, Pete is not wearing the red and blue suit at this time. And a lot of people might be confused because after he got rid of the symbiote, he still wore a suit that looked much like it. I mean, they were identical. And the suit, knowing this, took away that suit and made Peter think that the symbiote was its regular suit, so it could try to bond with him completely. And one night, wanting to web swing, he puts it on, realizes that it is the symbiote, and there's a struggle for control. Pete's doing everything he can to get rid of the symbiote as he's trying to go to Reed Richards. He winds up running to some Vulturians, which are basically knockoffs of the Vulture. They have his equipment and his tech. And they think they capture him, and eventually he has to go to the bell tower, and he uses the sonics of the bell to get rid of the symbiote, and he's to the point where he'd much rather him die and kill the symbiote with it instead of being bonded to it forever, which the symbiote winds up pulling him from the bell so it doesn't kill him and it leaves. So he is free of the symbiote. And which we would all know would later on become Venom. First drawn by the legendary Todd McFarlane. So this is a really good story. Like I said, it's a lost art of telling plot points, like so many, in one story. Where here, focus on what this symbiote is, and here's all these plots for future stories. Spider-Man at this time was really good at doing that. And hopefully, eventually, Marvel will get their stuff straight because they don't put out a lot of good books at this time. And get back to good storytelling. Hopefully come back to how stories were told back here in the 80s. But this has been my review for Amazing Spider-Man, Saga of the Alien Costume. I'm JVD for the Villains Man. Keep reading, guys.